She's so full of energy.
Amen. All right, how's everybody doing? Awesome. Awesome. So let's start with a word of prayer. Lord, we thank you. We love you for your grace and your mercy before us, Lord. There is none like you. There is never anyone like you, none before you. You're the Redeemer of our souls, Lord. You brought us to you, Lord. You saved us, Lord, and set us free. We just pray, Lord, that today as I stand before you, Lord, I just humble myself before you, empty myself of my thoughts and my worries, my fears, my tears, anger, anything, Lord. I come repentant before you, Lord, and I pray that you would speak your truth and bring glory to your name. I pray that you open the ears of all who hear today, Lord, that we will all be able just to push things aside, Lord, and give you the glory and honor that is due your name. We do not claim to be experts in what we're about to talk about, Lord. We claim that your Spirit would speak through us and that you would change lives forever. In Jesus' name pray. Amen. All right, so we're going to go back to Acts now. And we're in Acts chapter 10, verses 1 through 23. Had a great time talking about relationships, conflict, and communication. I don't profess to be perfect in any of that stuff. I am learning as everyone in here is probably learning. But just to recap, last time we left off in Acts, Pastor Tim and Brother AJ spoke about Acts chapter 9. And in Acts chapter 9, remember, Saul came to Christ. Peter healed 2 people. I mean, it was like an awesome thing. And Saul went around just proclaiming God's truth. So a lot of things happened in Acts chapter 9 that were pretty awesome. If you want to listen to it again, you can listen to it on the Facebook page. I've listened to it. I thought it was pretty nice. So Acts chapter 10, we're going to go to verses 1 through 23. We're going to explain some things. There's 48 verses in there. It's a whole story put together, but it's best if we can explain the entire thing together. So who would like to read verses 1 through 12? Okay, all right. So we're going to get Jamie 1 through 12. And I think, did you say verses 12, 23, 13, 23? I thought I heard you say something. I'm sorry. I just want to make sure. Did you? Okay, all right. Okay, so Bill will take that part then. Bill will get that. Okay, I thought I heard you say that back there. Sorry. Okay, Jamie, you can start with verse 1 through 12. No, Tim's not there. Sisera, yeah.
And there came a voice to him, "Rise, Peter, kill and eat." But Peter said, "By no means, Lord, for I have never eaten anything that is common or unclean." And the voice came to him again a second time, "What God has made clean, do not call common." This happened 3 times, and the thing was taken up at once to heaven. Now while Peter was unwordedly perplexed as to what the vision that he had seen might mean, behold, the men who were sent by Cornelius, having made inquiry for Simon's house, stood at the gate and called out to ask whether Simon, who was called Peter, was lodging there. And while Peter was pondering the vision, the Spirit said to him, Behold, 3 men are looking for you. Rise and go down and accompany them without hesitation, for I have sent them. And Peter went down to the men and said, I am the one you are looking for. What is the reason for your coming? And they said, Cornelius, a Centurion, upright and God-fearing man, who is well spoken of by the whole Jewish nation, was directed by a holy angel to send for you to come to his house and to hear what you have to say. So he invited them in to be his guests.
Okay, so a lot of crazy things just happened, right? One guy got to talk to an angel one-on-one. Pretty intense there. Peter is sitting on top of a roof, and a big sheet with every animal that he can think of comes down from heaven, and somebody tells him to rise and eat. Now, that's not normal, okay? That's not. Don't think like every day you can go talk to an angel, and don't think like every day you're going to have this massive vision of animals coming down. That's not normal, but that is God. God wanted to give a clear message. So listen, let's go back to the first 8 verses where it said, at Caesarea there's a man named Cornelius, a centurion of what was known as the Italian cohort. Now listen, Cornelius was an Italian soldier, and he was part of the Roman province. Now what you got in Rome right now, or in Jerusalem at that time in Joppa, what you have Roman rule. And what you do is you put a treasurer in that spot. That treasurer is going to be there for a long time. And so you put soldiers, right? Because if you're going to put your money right there, you're probably going to want people to protect your money. And they also, if there's any insurgency, the soldiers come in and knock it down. Now Cornelius was Italian himself. This is an Italian guy, and he was over maybe about 60 guys. And they're all Italian. And so this is why they call it the Italian cohort. That wasn't usual back then, but it was common. It could happen at times. Now, Cornelius came from a polytheistic background. Now, polytheism is when you worship many gods, because he was from Rome, right? So he's worshiping many gods. Cornelius became a proselyte because he changed and he began to worship the one true God, Yahweh, at the time, right? He was all into Judaism, so he changed his life and he converted. Now, he was practicing Jewish laws really devoutly. I mean, this guy was all in. He was praying, he was doing all this stuff, but his heart was truly devoted unto God. He really, really wanted to know who God was. Now, so what he did was he would give alms to the poor, which was a very common thing. You give alms to the poor. In other words, you give them what they don't have. And the only way of doing that, he was praying just like Peter was 3 times a day. Now, by the time he was praying when the angel comes, it was probably around 3 o'clock. That was a normal time to pray if you were Jewish. So he's sitting there in prayer, calling out to God. And the next thing you know, an angel appears and he says, listen, God has heard you. He's seen your alms given to your poor, and your prayers have come up as a memorial before God. Now, Levitical law, I want you to know how prayers went up. How many of you guys ever used to burn like incense in your house? Still do, huh? Yeah, we had to do it growing up. Everybody and mama did it growing up. And it's that little stick, and it burns, and it smells good, doesn't it? And then you see if the smoke goes up, and your mama tells you don't touch it because it'll burn your tip, your fingers. I guess I was the only person who did that. But it goes up in the air. And what you do is, if you were Jewish, you would take a portion of the meal. It's called memorial offering. And you would take a portion of the meal that you have, and you would burn it. But you would burn it with frankincense. Frankincense it gives this great smell, and it has this like black smoke that goes up. And what it symbolized was that your prayers were going up before the Lord, and He was pleased with your prayers. He could smell it. It was like a sweet smelling aroma. And so what the angel is telling Cornelius is, your prayers are like a sweet smelling aroma unto God, and they have gone up to Him. And this was to symbolize, to show that God is taking pleasure in your prayers. So now the whole thing is Cornelius still is not saved, though. I know that God heard his prayer. I know that an angel appeared to him, but Cornelius is not yet saved. He's worshiping Judaism. He's missing the missing link of Christ. But God heard this prayer. God heard this beautiful prayer. The best way to describe it is Exodus chapter 2, verse 23 to 25. And it says this. This is what the Israelites prayed. It said, during those many days, the king of Egypt died, and the people of Israel groaned because of their slavery and cried out for help. Their cry for rescue from slavery came up to God, and God heard their groaning, and God remembered his covenant with Abraham, with Isaac, and with Jacob. God saw the people of Israel, and God knew. So in other words, when Cornelius is praying, God is hearing Cornelius cry out to him for true salvation. You got to think about this guy for most of his life has probably been worshiping all these gods. Various gods. Listen, if you know anything about Greek mythology, Greek and Roman mythology are the same thing, just different names. But if you know anything about that mythology, every god hates you. I mean, they just don't like you. Zeus, because he didn't like man, cut him in half, and he made man, he made woman. You have to find each other for the rest of your life. There's another god that just, it's crazy, right? That's where we get, that's my soulmate. That's where the idea comes from, that you're looking for your other half. There was another god that, he was a god of war. And he wanted war because it made him more powerful. Mars or whatever. There's the god of the sea. And you couldn't do anything to make any of these gods happy. As a matter of fact, they would torture you. So he leaves that and he comes to Judaism after Christ has been resurrected. And so now he's trying to keep all these laws. So Cornelius is actually seeking out truth. The only thing is, Cornelius can't get saved until he hears the gospel message. What Cornelius was finding was Judaism wasn't satisfying him. Much like a Muslim finds that Islam is not satisfying. A Latter-day Saint or a Mormon finds that, I want to know the deity of God. Christ has to be God. It's not satisfying what you're telling me. A Jehovah's Witness is not satisfied with, hey, great, 144,000 of you guys make it, but we get to stay on earth and clean this place up. Right? Confucianists, they're not satisfied with knowledge. A Buddhist is not satisfied with trying to achieve the best he can in life and hope he makes it out. A Hinduist is not satisfied with their many gods and always being told, you're not good enough, you're going to be on this earth, but if you're really good, you'll come back as a cow. They're not satisfied by that. It's no satisfaction. They're looking for something more. And that's what Cornelius was. He was looking for something more than what he had. Now, if we're honest, we are the same way. Right? Now, God spoke to Cornelius in the midst of this religion that he was going after, trying to keep these laws. But that doesn't mean that God can't speak to someone who's Islamic. That doesn't mean that God can't speak to someone who's Mormon, someone who's Jehovah's Witness, and say, this isn't the truth that you really want. That means God will speak to these people. He puts it in their hearts. Now, what I loved about this, God gives Cornelius a detailed instruction of what to do. He tells him in great deal, you're going to go and get this guy named Simon. I call him Peter. He's going to be working. He's going to be staying with this guy who's a taxidermist. Go to his house, send faithful men to get him and bring him to him. Why? Because Cornelius desired truth. Now see, this shows that God has kept his word. In Job 2:32, it says, and it shall come to pass that everyone who calls on the name of the Lord shall be saved. Now this is from the same chapter that Peter used on the day of Pentecost to tell people, hey, listen, God is moving in a great and powerful way. His Holy Spirit is falling upon us. And so God is adhering to his word and he's fulfilling his word. He's keeping it. And this is why anyone can call upon Christ and he will answer if they truly want him. Now, God isn't trying to save Cornelius from, getting a bad reputation. He's not trying to save Cornelius from being looked down upon. He's trying to save his soul. But Cornelius has to hear the gospel. Here's the thing. We always sometimes think that, people come to the gospel because you're a great teacher. They come to the gospel because we got this great new gimmick. It's a fireproof way to share Jesus with people. They're going to get saved once you finish. They just got to do these 5 steps. The way that people come to Christ is through the gospel. You share the gospel message. You give them truth. Nothing else. That's all they really need. But it's our belief they need something more. They need a heart-filled message that is geared just towards them. They need to be in a small group that is just about their basic needs. But the reality is, it's the gospel that saves. Go to Romans chapter 10 real quick. Romans chapter 10, verses 14 to 17. 14 through 17. Just let me know when you're there. Okay, all right. 10. That's 2. All right, here we go. How then can they call on him who have they not believed? And how are they to believe in him whom they have never heard? And how are they to hear without someone preaching? And how are they to preach unless they are sent? As it is written, how beautiful are the feet of those who preach the good news. But they have not all obeyed the gospel. For Isaiah says, Lord, who has believed what he has heard from us? So faith comes from hearing, and hearing through the word of Christ. It's a real big thing of how can people come to know Christ unless they hear the gospel message. What we would like God to do sometimes is to be Superman and come in and just whoosh, save everybody. That God would change everybody's heart in an instant and they all get saved. That we don't have to do anything. We don't have to have a conversation. All we have to do is pray for you and you come to Jesus. We don't have to see your face. But the way that God brings people unto him, he tugs on their hearts first and then he sends us. Like, literally, how can they believe unless they hear it? How can they know the truth unless someone is speaking it? We live in a day and age right now where everybody is speaking about something. I mean, you can't tweet anything without somebody getting offended. You can't put anything on Facebook without somebody getting mad. You can't clear your throat without somebody saying, oh, you're talking to me. You can't do any of that stuff. And then you got people who just promote nothing but lies. That's all they talk about is a lie here, lie there. I can turn on any TV station right now and I can show you tons of people like that. And they're well dressed too. I mean, they got a lot of money. But they're spewing out lies. You get messages where people are saying things, they want to comfort you, but they don't want to challenge you. I want to make you feel good when you come in the church, but I don't want you to be challenged. Because once we start challenging people, they leave. We don't want that. I don't want conflict, because when we have conflict, then we got to come to a resolution and we got to come to speak some truth. I don't want to speak truth. Right? It's easier to speak a lie. It's easier to say, guess what? Everybody goes to heaven. Right? If you're 80 years old, you're definitely going to heaven. I got to preach a retirement home today, later on today at 2 o'clock. And the easy thing to say is, hey, you know what? Your sweet faces, you're going to heaven. You know, I know you're still a sinner, but you God's going to walk in there. You're 80, come on. Right? That's what we want. But it says that they need to hear the gospel truth. Your friend at work that you don't want to offend. Because if you tell them the truth, they might not be your friend anymore. And you're going to lose one more friend off of Facebook out of the 400 that you have. Right? That's really how we think about it. But it makes it very clear, how are they to believe in him who they have never heard, and how can they hear without someone preaching? Now, here's the thing. That someone is really us in this room. It's really the entire body of Christ. That's how they hear it. And how can they preach unless that they're sent? And I love verse 17. Faith comes from hearing, and hearing through the word of Christ. Not through the word of Joe. Not through the word of you, not through the word of your mama, not through the word of your daddy, not through the word of your kids, not through the word of your cousin, not through the word of that famous preacher who put on a great tweet that you posted on Facebook. It's through the words of Christ. That's what brings people to salvation. That's what changes lives. And that's something that we need to understand. That God wants to use somebody to bring glory to his name. Because he's placed eternity in their hearts. I mean, just think about that. Right now, God is speaking to somebody. Speaking clearly to them. Telling them of his truth right in their heart. Right now, God is doing that. There's a Muslim guy in a mosque who is praying, calling out to Allah. And something in his heart saying that this isn't right. There's something more. Muslims generally call Jesus Isa. Maybe I'm saying it right. I hope what I'm saying. Isa, thank you. They call him Isa. And somebody is praying thinking, but what if Isa is the way? There's some Mormon right now sitting in a Latter-day Saint temple, singing Christian songs like we do, having somebody get up and preach like we do, but they're thinking, but what if Jesus is God? I mean, when I read in John chapter 1, Jesus is God. When I read in Hebrews, it keeps pointing that Christ is God. What if that's true? And God is speaking that to them. There's somebody in Asia right now who's going to be coming over here this summer who has been struggling with the idea of atheism. Listen, China is an atheist state. They'll tell you that they are an atheist state. They have churches, but they want the church to promote the government agenda. And they're standing right now in a church in China about to come over here for the summer, and they're thinking to themselves, but what about Christ? Is this real? God is putting eternity in the hearts of some people right now. And He's looking for people with beautiful feet. People, now listen, when I say beautiful feet, in Isaiah it makes it very clear how beautiful are the feet of those who share the good news. How beautiful are those feet? Now, we're not talking about actually getting a pedicure because I got shoes on for a reason, right? But we're actually talking about someone who's willing to get up and go out and share the gospel. You guys remember when you're younger and you fall and you scrape your knee? Isn't that like the worst pain of all time? It's like your knee is on fire. And what do? You cry. And wasn't it awesome when your parent or somebody came to help you? You can see them coming from a mile away, and they come and they pick you up. And then, okay, let's take care of that. Let's heal that. I know you're hurting. Let's take care of it. Isn't that an awesome thing? Listen, it's the same thing for us. When we come and bring the news of salvation and redemption and forgiveness and grace and truth and set people free from the kingdom of darkness so they can come to the kingdom of light, that is what it feels like. It feels like a relief for the first time in your life. But the thing is, sometimes we as Christians have this within us, but we don't want to tell anybody about it. You want to tell anyone. Imagine if there was a house on the corner that everybody who walked in got $1 million. And your friend is in debt. They are in debt up to their eyes. They have to pay medical bills. Things are going bad. They just need some relief. Would you tell them about the house? Or would you keep it to yourself and you got $1 million? Would you give them something every now and then to help them out? Or would you actually tell them about there's some place you can go to get that? See, it's the same thing with the gospel. We have opportunity to share a truth with people to free them. I mean, really. Skip just having fun and relaxing. We got friends and colleagues who are dying in front of our eyes, and all we do is stare at them. Hope somebody else comes talk to them. Well, I invite them to church, because if they come to church, boy, they hear that message, they're going to get saved right now. How do you know that? 60% of all people don't come to church. That was a hard fact for me to realize. 60% won't walk inside a church building like ever. Most of them will stay on the outskirts of the church because they're going to feel judged if they come in. And that's the church's fault, not theirs. But can you imagine having those beautiful feet and walking up there and speaking truth? And they get set free. If it was your son or your daughter, bound in jail, shackled, beaten every night, and the jailer came and said, here's the key. You can let them go anytime. Would you stand by and know they're getting beaten every night, hear their screams, and know they're being tortured? Or would you go and unlock that door? You got to think about the same way about sharing the gospel, because Cornelius was calling out to God. Now, this doesn't mean as well, now Cornelius was in Judaism, and that wasn't the way to do it. But this doesn't mean that you can that you're a Christian and you can be Buddhist. This doesn't mean that you can be all into Judaism and not talk about Christ, and then God leads you to Himself through that false religion. What this means is God will not leave you in that predicament. God spoke to Cornelius through the angel and through the prayers and stuff he was doing as a Jewish person would, because He met him at his level. And that's what I love about God. He meets us where we are. Now, we may not believe that, but think back when you accepted Christ. You weren't like super religious. You might have came here because, well, this girl invited me. And, I'm trying to seal the deal on this, so I'm just going to show up, just, I look good, and she's coming here, so she look good, I look good. Hey, match made in heaven. Some of you were at the lowest points of your life. Some of you were in deep, deep sin. But God met you where you were. He spoke a message to you that it felt like the preacher was just talking to you the whole time. Made you feel uncomfortable sitting down. Anybody else have that, or is that just me? Because I've been there where you kind of, somebody must have told him about my business. That's what happened. Talking to me, I'm going to talk to that dude right after this service is over with, right? But that's God speaking directly to you. And this is the beauty of God. He meets us where we are. He doesn't try to bring us to His level because we couldn't handle that. He meets us where we are and He speaks truth exactly where we are, like in an instant. And I just love that about Him. Because Cornelius' heart was bent towards God. He just didn't know what to do. Right now you got people who are homosexuals, but guess what? They want to know God. They desire Him, so they call out to Him. You got people who are in false religions. They still want to know who God is. They just don't know how. And this is why we need people with beautiful feet who are willing to go out. Willing to go out there. And we're going to get more into that, but let's go on to verses 9 through 16. And when it says the next day as they were on their journey approaching the city, Peter went up on the housetop about the 6th hour to pray. And he became hungry and wanted something to eat, but while they were preparing it, he fell into a trance and saw the heavens open and something like a great sheet descending, being let down in its four corners upon the earth. In it were all kinds of animals and reptiles and birds of the air. There came a voice to him, "Rise, Peter, kill and eat." But Peter said, "By no means, Lord, for I have never eaten anything that is common or unclean." And the voice came to him again, "Do not call common what God has made clean." This happened 3 times and things were taken up at once. So listen, before you think it's kind of strange to go up on your roof and pray, one, I advise you, don't go home today, climb your roof and start praying because you're going to fall down and break something and then we have to come and help you. Okay? Our roofs, like if you say house in sign language, a house in sign language is this. You notice the angle you make. Now, if it was biblical times and I said house sign language, I would have to do this. That's it. Okay? The rooftop is flat. Now, it's not flat where you can just jump off and lose it. There's these like walls that come up. And so it's high enough where you just can't jump off and just lose your mind and do parkour or whatever. But it's high enough where no one else can see you. And sometimes they will have vines that will grow over that a little bit, so it was a place of privacy. How many of you guys like to barbecue? How many of you guys can actually barbecue? Right, that number always goes lower when you're... Now, keep your hand down. Here's the thing, right? Where do you barbecue at generally? Well, you barbecue with a grill. Where? Location-wise. Where at your house? Outside? In the front? And I was in the front, which it was weird for us growing up, because growing up we did it in the back with the fence. Because once your neighbors see you barbecue and everybody start coming, "Hey, I got some more of that steak. Man, I'm hungry." And then your cousins out of nowhere show up. But we barbecue in the back. And when I go back home, my dad's got a privacy fence, and that's where we barbecue. We barbecue when no one can see us because we like the food. And then we have a pool back there. My dad's got a pool back there. I know I keep saying we because, hey, what's his is mine. But, but we have a pool back there. If the kids want to play a game, they can play back there. If you want to walk around and pray, you can do that back there. My dad would get some coffee in the morning and sit on the back of his porch and just look out at the sun. But that's where it does it. And so in biblical times, that's what the roof was for. That's where you go to do everything. You go to pray. You go to cook because it's hot up there. If you want to take a bath, you can take a bath. I mean, you can do lots of stuff up there. It was cool. And that's what Peter was doing. This was normal. So it's not that this is weird. It's just what Peter was doing. So Peter's up there and he's praying unto God. He's calling out to God, having a great time. Right? How many of you ever been praying and it's not the Holy Spirit speaking to you, but it's your stomach? Right? You get the little... And the first thing you think is, well, we're going to pray for like 5 more minutes because I don't think I can make it. Now, if you say, no, Joe, I push past that. Good for you. Okay? When my stomach starts growling, I start getting weak, and let me just get something to eat. Okay? So Peter is doing that, and he gets hungry. And now he wants something to eat. He's got this big desire to get something to eat. And out of nowhere comes this sheet filled with animals. Right? Now, in our terminology there's probably a cow. There's probably some fish. There could have been like an octopus. There could have been, octopus. Octopus is good. Watch. There could have been chicken. There could have been a pig. Now, Peter says, I cannot eat this. And now, in our mind, too bad. Steak, fish fillet, KFC, and sushi. Right? We already got that in bacon. Especially, don't forget the bacon. That's what we would do. That would be us. But Peter couldn't. And if you want to know why, go to Leviticus. It's in the Old Testament. I want to make that. It's in the Old Testament, not in the New Testament. Yep, it's way in the very beginning. Genesis, Exodus, Numbers, Leviticus. I missed something. We're going to edit that later.
What chapter was that?
Leviticus chapter 11, verse 41. And we're going to see why Peter didn't want to eat anything. Are you there? Leviticus chapter 11. That's the Old Testament. Old Testament. Some good stuff right there. 11. Verse 41. Is everybody there? Did you make it? It's a long chapter, isn't it? Yeah, we're not going to read the whole thing. We're going to take this section out. Verse 41. So this is the things that they cannot eat. These are some of the things. Every swarming thing that swarms on the ground is detestable. It should not be eaten. Wherever goes on its belly and whatever goes on all fours, so whatever has many feet, any swarming thing that swarms on the ground, you shall not eat, for they are detestable. You should not make yourselves detestable with any swarming things that swarm, and you should not defile yourself with them and become unclean through them. For I am the Lord your God. Consecrate yourselves, therefore, and be holy, for I am holy. You shall not defile yourself with any swarming thing that crawls on the ground. For I am the Lord who brought you up out of the land of Egypt to be your God. You shall therefore be holy, for I am holy. This is a law about beasts and the bird, every living creature that moves through the waters, and every creature that swarms on the ground, to make a distinction between the unclean and the clean, between the living creature that may be eaten and the living creature that may not be eaten. All right, so the reason Peter does not want to eat any of this stuff is because in Jewish law, if you ate that stuff, you became defiled. And to be consecrated to God means be connected to Him. So by eating a good steak, eating some nice bacon with some eggs and sausage on the side, that in Jewish law is not kosher. Right? You ever had those kosher hot dogs? Hebrew hot dogs? Hebrews? Anybody? They taste good, don't they? Right? That's kosher though. They can eat that, but they can't eat anything else. And so the problem with Peter was he was still believing that his faith, his salvation was tied into his work. He believed that what he ate helped bring him closer to God. And he was still tying that in there, as opposed to understanding that the work of Christ on the cross is what brought him to salvation, is what redeemed him, not what he did. He was relying too much on the work. And the crazy thing is, listen, Peter would rather starve himself and disobey God than rise and eat when God commanded him to. Now you gotta realize, when Cornelius was met by the angel, and the angel told Cornelius what to do, Cornelius said, okay, let's do it. Peter, who has walked with Jesus, preached the best sermon of all time, is out there doing it, and people coming to Christ, got arrested for the cross and all that stuff, got beat. God says, eat. Something really simple. God says, eat. And Peter says, no, I've never done it and I never will. You got to see his heart in that. Something's not right with Peter. Right now, we would think, well, maybe, but it's an Old Testament law. But Peter should be right. Listen, Jesus fulfilled the law. I'm going to read to you from Mark chapter 7, verse 14 to 23. I want you to hear what Jesus said about this. And he called the people to him again and said to them, hear me, all of you, and understand. There is nothing outside of a person that going into him can defile him, but the things that come out of a person are what defile him. And when he entered the house and left the people, his disciples asked about the parable. And he said to them, that you also without understanding, do you not see that whatever goes into a person from the outside cannot defile him, since it enters into his heart, but his stomach, and is expelled? I hope you know what he's talking about, because I don't want to describe that. Okay? Good. Thus he declared all foods clean. And he said, what comes out of a person is what defiles him. From within, out of the heart of man, come evil thoughts, sexual morality, theft, murder, adultery, coveting, wickedness, deceit, sensuality, envy, slander, pride, foolishness. All these evil things come from within, and they defile a person. What Jesus was helping make clear for Peter is that defiling, the things that are detestable, the things you think you're eating that are destroying you, are not. It's a heart that's not surrendered to me. A heart that is so focused on itself. Not on me, but itself. You can't look on the outward actions of people. You can't look at people and assume they don't want to know God. They're heathen, they're disgusting, they're this. We can't assume things about people. You know, it's an old saying, listen, hey, you can't judge a book by its cover. And Peter is missing the whole purpose of the Levitical law. What was God trying to do? Listen, the reason they couldn't eat those things ultimately was to show people who God was. Right? Listen, how many of you guys ever been a vegan? I have. Okay, listen, if you are able to stay a vegan for the rest of your life, hey, more power to you. I tried it for a couple of months. It was hard. There's not enough salad and tofu in the world for this guy. Right? It was hard for me. But when people will ask me, hey, how come you don't eat meat products? I would say, because I'm a vegan. Why are you a vegan? Because, and I give an explanation of my belief. Back then, for Jews, that was what happened. Hey, how come you guys don't want a steak? No, we don't eat those things. Why? Because I'm Jewish and I worship the one and true God. Well, what do you mean? And it led to a whole conversation. And back then, too, you could become Jewish, you had to get circumcised, and then, bam, you got to keep the law. And that was it. That's why they did it. But when Christ came, he fulfilled the law. So now, listen, we don't do things as the world would do it. We don't go to the strip club. Why? Because I love the Lord. Well, what do you mean? And we get to talk about our beliefs. Well, hey, man, I know you're mad. Just let it out. You should curse like I curse. Well, I want to. I really do. And I hear it up here, but I can't, man. My heart is different. Well, why? And you go into the explanation. That's the whole purpose of it. And that's what Peter was missing. There's nothing I can do to make myself more connected to Christ except surrender my heart to him. And what God showed Peter is that your heart is not surrendered to me, Peter. Your heart is nowhere near surrendered to me. You're still a little bit off from me, and I'm trying to speak to you. Now, here's the thing. God does the exact same thing for us. Because we can look in Peter and say, that guy's something else. He fell in when Jesus told him to walk on water, loser one. He denied Christ 3 times. Man, that's horrible. And now he's telling God no. Man, that guy's something else. But think about your own life. How many times has God revealed something to you about yourself through a simple thing? And you say, well, I'm good, though. Listen, I'm good at being patient with people. Really? Really? Okay. Let's follow you for a day and see how patient you really are with people. It's not me. They just get on my nerves, so you're not patient. Well, listen, I'm a humble person. For real? Let's go to your job. How many times you talk about your boss? They don't know what they're doing. So silly. They don't understand what I know. I should be in charge. So humble. Listen, I love when people live with us because I get to see what I really need to work on in my life. I get to see if I need to work on my marriage. I can see if I communicate well with people. I get to see, because listen, I used to think that everybody around me was just, you guys are jerks. And then I realized, oh no, it's really me. It's not them. Oh, my heart is not right. I didn't surrender this thing to Christ. Because what we do is we look at people and their outward actions and we judge them, don't we? If we're honest, we do. If I say Madonna right now, you already, she is something else, right? Just like that. We'll jump on that bandwagon. We'll let someone post something on Facebook with limited information. We already made our conclusion about that person. But I'm not judgmental. I give everybody a free chance. But what she said on Facebook, That text message that accidentally came in all caps. Oh, so you yelling at me now. Okay, I get you. Wait till I see you face, right? Because we're all about us. We're not surrendering that part of our lives to Christ. And so we're having struggles. We're having struggles. And then when God confronts us with this, listen, this is a part of the process that brings sanctification. Sanctification is how I become holy before the Lord. But the only way to do that is to show you yourself. The only way to do that is actually to show you what's going on in your own life. Right? Listen, the mirror really doesn't lie. We think it does, but it doesn't. That mirror will tell you the truth. Because we have to look and see, okay, God, what about me needs to change? Because what we tend to do is we try to make a religious system to make ourselves feel better. And listen, a religious system doesn't bring about righteousness. It's a heart that's surrendered to Christ that brings about the righteousness that God desires from all of us. But what an awesome and loving God to show Peter his own sin. To show Peter that he's still tying things on. And that not only that, because later on in chapter 10, that Peter thinks that some people still don't deserve Christ. Because if we're honest, when Osama bin Laden died, everybody probably gave a high five. Got him. Saddam Hussein, finally. That person who made fun of you that is in jail now, I knew they'd end up in there. Right? Listen, we want our cousins to get saved. Listen, I want everybody who knows Christ, everybody who doesn't know Christ to get saved. I really do. But my crazy grandma, if she died and burned in hell, Joe wasn't too, when she died, I wasn't like crying. Because she was abusive, so I didn't like shed a tear. And if she died and went to hell, there was a part of me that was like, well, that's something wrong with me. My heart should break for those who don't know Christ and are dying and going to hell. There's something should happen within me. I should look for the opportunity that God is going to place at my doorstep to go and share the gospel, as opposed to just say, you know what, hopefully somebody else will talk to him. Right? Because listen, God is looking for people. Because remember, what happens later on, they knock on the door. They knock on Peter's door after verse 16, and they want to know what's going on. They want Peter to come and speak to them. That's what's happening. Do you know right now that somebody is waiting for you to hear the gospel? There's somebody right now who is sitting down someplace, and God is speaking in their hearts, and He's going to have you two meet, and they're going to hear the gospel. Are you ready for that? Are you ready for that? Somebody right now. Listen, there are tons of ladies right now at a place called Zippers who need to hear the gospel. And they're waiting. Not for any of the dudes, but they're waiting. They're waiting for a woman to open up her house and say, hey, listen, on Tuesdays, you're more than welcome to come in. We're going to share the gospel with you. The church back home I went to, they would bring roses to the ladies and share Jesus with them. And you'd be amazed at how many women left that lifestyle and came to Christ. There are some young men who are struggling with life, who are waiting to be mentored and someone to share the gospel. They're waiting for somebody with expectation. There's some women in horrible relationships, some guys who don't know how to be a man, who are waiting for somebody to come and share the truth with them. Because just like Cornelius, they thought doing it their way was going to work, but it has not worked yet. But God has filled you with the gospel truth to go share it. There's some whose kids have been taken away, and they need somebody to come share the truth. Ooh, I'll do it. I'll get paid for it. What if God says do it for free? For free. We're all looking to get paid. Hey, listen, I ain't mad at you. I understand. It's cool to do something you love and get paid. But what happens if God says, no more, free? Give of yourself. Because they're waiting. And God is wondering, do you want to be the one to go out there and do it? Will you answer the call? Because here's the cool thing. Just like God told Cornelius specifically about Peter, there's somebody right now at a job site, and God says, hey, you know what? I want you to talk to Bree about that. I want you to talk to Jay Lee about that. I want you to talk to Dakota about that. Hey, I want you to go talk to Sarah want you to go talk to Tom. I want you to go talk to them about what you're wondering. Go talk to Kevin. Hey, go talk to that little kid. Go talk to them. I want you to talk to them about this because they know the truth. And the question is, are you ready to open up your mouth and share that? You got to think about that there's somebody right now. It's not a weird thing. It's actually happening. Now, you may not believe me. I'm going to show you it's true. How many of you have wanted to know something or praying about something and you met me or you met Tamika and we shared something with you and it changed you? So you don't think God's doing somebody else with you right now? Don't think it's just Joe. Oh, Joe is special though. No, it's the same thing. How many of you were praying about something, needed something, really and God was pulling your heart and he let you talk to Pastor Tim? And he told you something that you were like, dang, that's true. You can raise your hand for that too. Okay, yeah, okay, cool. Joe, okay, thank you, Brass. Okay, good. Right? Here's the thing. God is doing it. That's how he does it. He puts someone just and says, here, go talk to them. They got the truth. They're going to take you the rest of the way. Listen, when my daughter Brooklyn wanted to play the piano, I didn't know how to play anything. So I got an old book that I couldn't read, and I practiced, and that's okay, Brooklyn, let's try this. And we got it. And man, she was doing it. And then it came to the point I couldn't do anything else, and she went to somebody else. And now my daughter makes her own music. I started with my kids making Lego movies, and now they got podcasts. They made storyboards. I couldn't take them that far, but listen, I could only get them to the point where God had me to take them. Then we hand them off to somebody else. That's how it works. You got to hook up with somebody. You got to think about Cornelius. God told Cornelius to go and get Peter. Cornelius is a leader. He doesn't submit to anybody. People submit to him. He told two guys, you two come here, go to Joppa. You know what those guys are doing? They could have been like, what? I got this thing back home. I got to go do it. No. You're going to Joppa tonight. Go get this guy named Simon Peter. Thank you. Love you. Bye-bye. That's what leaders do. I remember it was an old joke. What time is in Army, we would say, what time does the meeting start? And the answer was when the general shows up. That's when it starts. Because he's the leader. We follow him. Cornelius had to submit himself and have Peter brought to him. And then, listen, when we get later on in chapter 10, he's got to submit to Peter and his teaching. So here's a cool thing. Who are you allowing to do that in your life right now? Right? As opposed to just saying, I'm going to do this scot-free. I'm good, man. Who are you allowing to do that? To speak truth into your life? Who has God put in your heart to say, I want you to go talk to them? I want you to listen to what they got to say. As opposed to we get upset about who gets to talk to us, don't we? If we're honest, I don't want to talk to them. I don't like what they got to say. Or we're on the reverse side. God wants us to go talk to somebody. You know what they did? I remember way back when. Well, they wouldn't understand. They can't relate. But if God is setting up this appointment, like Cornelius and Peter, don't you think that God is going to be the one doing it? We don't get to complain about the destination that God takes us. We don't get to complain about the people he sends us to. Lord knows I've said a couple times, okay, Lord, I know you said Iowa, but I think you really meant Georgia. Because Iowa and Georgia sound just alike to me, God. Did you say Atlanta or did you say Estherville? Because I'm hearing Atlanta in my ear. We don't get to complain about that. We get to go and do the will of God so people can come to salvation. It's about expanding God's kingdom, not about complaining who gets to do what. It's about him. Because listen, that song, I loved it. I can only imagine. Can you really think of that day where nothing else matters? That day where everything is wiped away in the blink of an eye, and you're standing before the creator of the entire universe, and it's not some weird kooky thing, but you're in front of him, and you can feel the joy of the Lord. You can, all my worries are gone in a blink of an eye, and I'm standing in front of God, worshiping him. Why would I want to be by myself? Why not bring as many as I can? Why not have beautiful feet? I'm going to tell you, you're going to get tired, you're going to quit. but you can't. You're going to get disappointed in people. They're going to let you down, but you got to keep going. People will frustrate you. Your children will frustrate you. If you think, listen, I'm telling you, when people tell me about ministry, well, you know, it's a little tough. Some days I want to say, hey, welcome to the club, man. Well, they're not listening to me. Guess what? Because sometimes I look at people and say, well, they're not listening to me. I look at them and go like, do you hear who's talking? Well, they're frustrating me. Yeah. What, you feel a little angry? Yeah. You just want to go home and scream? Yeah. You want to quit? Yeah. I remember about 2 years ago, I felt the same way about you, man. So now I just want to throw things through the wall when I talk to you. But no, why do you push through? Because I want you there worshiping Christ. I want you to... this is why Peter had to go, because it's a salvation. Oh, I really don't want to get into verse chapter 10, but his whole household was there, man. You don't know what God's going to do. You don't know what you're going to start. You can come on in. We're going to start praying pretty soon. You don't know what he's going to start. But the question is, are you willing to have those beautiful feet? Are you willing to put your selfishness aside? Willing to say, you know what? It's about faith in Christ. It's about the work of Christ, not the work of me. Are you willing to do that in the hopes that someone will come to salvation? That's what we're talking about. And let God sanctify you. Let him show you. Listen, I promise you I'm going to close. When God showed Peter his sin, Peter had to acknowledge it and deal with it. And then Peter had to move forward. So my hope is every time you come here, every time you open your word, God shows you the things that you need to continue to work on. Now, God is gracious, right? If God put everything out on the table you need to work on, we probably will all break down and cry. I can't do it. But God is so gracious. It's like he brings you to a point like he brought Peter. He restored him from denying him. He grew in his faith. He told him to go and feed my sheep. And now he wants him to feed the entire sheep of the nations. And so now he brings Peter to a point, and you still think people are gross. That's not okay, Peter. Let's work on that. Now, how is God going to work him on that? By having him go in that situation and work through that. You want to know how you get over racism? Be around people who aren't your race. I had this struggle. If you were Middle Eastern, because of the army, you were the enemy. And you had to die. Because when we're trained in the army, we're trained to kill. We're not trained to smile at you. It's like, oh, everything that I saw somebody was Middle Eastern in training, they were trying to kill me, and we were trained how to kill them quickly. And so, I remember being in Walmart, and someone walked by me, Middle Eastern, and immediately I was like, they're a terrorist. Immediately it popped up in my mind. And I was like, oh, God, I got to deal with that. Because what if you want me to share the gospel with them? And then, thanks be to God, he sent me to Minneapolis for a couple of hours, and it was like being back in the Middle East. It was nothing but Middle Eastern people around, and my heart for the first time broke for them to know Jesus. I had to realize I can't make things all about race. I'm working at the college, somebody draws a swastika, and I get mad. I get angry. Then I go into the restroom and somebody it says, Hail Satan, upside down cross, and I just go, that's all right. I don't want to bother by that. They made me make mad. That's always kind of crazy. Why am I not bothered about the upside down cross, but I'm bothered by a swastika? This is about my Lord, and this is about my skin. This one should bother me more. And so what is God doing? He's revealing myself to me, the things that he needs to transform me. So what do? I submit. Because there could be a day I have to talk to a Satanist. There could be a day I got to talk to someone from the Middle East and share the gospel truth with them in a loving way. So I have to deal with my own sin. It's the same thing with you. You got to deal with it. Don't hide from it. Don't act like it's not there. Deal with it. And you know why you deal with it? Because someone's salvation is at stake. If Peter said, I'm not going to talk to those Gentiles, what happens to Cornelius and his family? You got to deal with it because, listen, I've realized my sanctification, God uses to lead me to somebody else to share the gospel so they can come to salvation. That's how this thing works. And I'm so excited because there's some people waiting to hear from you. Some of you may even know those people. You may even have their name right now in your heart like, oh, I got to go talk to them. I really don't. Do it for the glory of God. Amen? Okay. We'll get to the rest of chapter 10 next week, so I'm going to push this away so I don't get to. Okay. All right. Prayer request. Any prayer request?